Hello, everyone. There was a series of questions that were asked for me, and originally was intended for something else, but that didn't quite go exactly as planned, and there was talk of rescheduling. However, I'm not a very patient person. On top of that, I've already prepared to answer the questions that were asked, and if I wait that long, maybe the answers I have wouldn't be the same, or more importantly, I might not be able to answer them the way I want to answer them. So I'm taking the wheel on this, and I'm just gonna. You guys asked them, so I'm gonna answer them. And it doesn't matter where they're answered, I suppose. And you know what? If July rolls along and you guys got a lot more questions, then we'll have some more stuff to answer then. Who's this? He's just. I call him. He doesn't really have a name, but him and Lance don't get along. We'll just leave it at that. So you'll never see him and Lance on the same show at the same time. And I can't even get between the two of them. But we're not here to talk about Lance. People had questions for George. And is GM Rex different from George? Yes, GM Rex is who I am here on YouTube. But George is a different person. But in a way, GM Rex is a reflection of George. But that wasn't a question. That's just to let you guys know that GM Rex and George Rezick Jr. are two different people. So, GM is going to ask the questions courtesy of the fans, and George will answer them. So, Dave Fournier, he asked one, two, three, four questions. So, hey Dave, good to hear from you. Those are great questions. We got to meet up again. I had a fun time at Raw with you in Boston that time, and definitely when this COVID mess is over, we definitely got to go out and do something. Um, his first question is, what got you interested in wrestling? Okay, well, I was born a wrestling fan. My mom was watching it. She got my dad into it. My sisters were into it. I was the third child, so when I was born, it was just always on. That was the family time. Like, we all had our separate things we liked individually, but the one thing we always agreed on was WWE. Well, it was WWF at the time, so. Um, but that was the one thing we always agreed on. We would have friends and family come over to watch the pay per views, um, and that's just it's always been there through some of the difficult times where my family doesn't see eye to eye so much anymore on this and that, and I lose myself every time Raw, SmackDown, whatever is on. Just because it reminds me of a simpler time where family was together and it wasn't as crazy as it is now. Um, what are your top three favorite indie promotions? Well, Lucky Pro is obviously my first favorite. And it's nothing against anywhere else. It's just that place has a special place in my heart, and a lot of people know why. And it might come up later on because there's some good questions here coming up too. Um, so yeah, LPW, 01 USA Northeast, and Chaotic. Although in all fairness, I only go to three shows anyways, so that was that was kind of an easier question. Um, because like I said, I only go to three different shows. I really haven't checked out anywhere else. I did go to the Fenway show a couple years ago. It was like summer of 2017. I did go to that thing at it was like a Latino family festival. I did go to that, and that kind of had a lot of, excuse me, matches from various promotions all scattered throughout New England. Um, what are your top five independent wrestlers. All right, well, I think it's only fair that I do one for the guys, one for the girls. So for top 5 for the guys, all right. Vern Vicalo, Anthony Green, Retro AG. Let's see. Kellen Thomas, Walking Riot, Kellen Thomas. Marcos the Pitbull, and Brian Malonis. All right, for the girls. Adira, Izana, Alicia Edwards, Davey Ann, and Sarah Teller. His last question here is, what is your favorite match of all time? Oh, damn. That is one. I don't know if I honestly have an answer. There's been so many great matches. I can't really narrow it down to one. I guess I'll just one that really stood out to me the most, I think. Oh, no brainer. WCW Bash at the Beach 1996. Macho Man Randy Savage, Sting, and Lex Luger take on the Outsiders and their third man. And that's a match I didn't actually really see live or like watch on when it was being on pay-per-view, but I was at my aunt and uncle's house when that day was on, so we could actually put it onto the pay-per-view channel, but you didn't see anything. You could hear everything going on. You could hear the commentary and promos, and every now and then you could make out a couple things. But knowing it was bedtime for the main event, so me and my cousins had to go to bed because I was 9, and one of my other cousins was 9, and the other one was 6. So yeah, we had to go to bed at like 10. I stayed up, and I could hear from the other room the third man talking. And my uncle comes in to tell us who it is. He wants us to guess. So my cousin Scott, who's like 2 months older than me, guesses Bret Hart. My uncle shakes his head, nope. My cousin Sean, who's 6, goes Yokozuna. My uncle goes, no way, Sean. And I go, Hogan. He's like, what makes you say that? I'm like, I could hear it from the other room. And he's like, yep, it was Hogan. And my cousin Sean, I think, went to bed crying that night. And my cousin Scott was like, God, I thought it was going to be Bret. And because the way it was set up was Bret wasn't seen since his WrestleMania match with Shawn Michaels. So yeah, me and my cousin Scott were like, oh, well, Bret would make the most sense because it sounds like they're coming from WWF. So that match, the build up to it, and the payoff was just, I mean, it's infamous in today's, we still talk about it to this day. Oh, Jerry Lane, he's got a good question here. Tell us the story of the IBC Root Beer Championship belt. I've told this to a few people, but believe it or not, a couple years ago on YouTube, me and my friend Chris, who I've known for 21 years, we would play WWF No Mercy on YouTube every Wednesday. We called it Retro Wrestling Wednesday. And, well, we started with WCW NWO Revenge. And we would play the Battle Royal, the 40-man Battle Royal. And we would just play, and we'd fight against the computer. And then when it came down to me and him, that's when we fought each other. Otherwise, we just took out however many we could and then focus on each other afterwards. So we were doing that for a few good weeks, and we were drinking IBC a lot. I had a couple kid belts, and I wasn't doing anything with them. I was like, these are kind of clutter. So I was like, I've got all these IBC bottle caps. I've got these boxes. Why don't I make an IBC Root Beer Championship and we can defend it every week? He didn't know that I was going to do this. So when I came out one week pretending to be Bret Hart or Edge, I can't remember which one. I mean, I did Edge one week, I did Bret another week. Every time I would make a different championship entrance. Um, but the first time I brought it out, he's like, what the hell is that? And it's like, we need something to defend every week. So it started there, and then we started going to LPW shows. We went to about 2 of them. And then after the second show, we're driving home, and I'm like, do you think I should bring the IBC title to shows? And he's like, it'd be weird, but sure. I don't know if it'll catch on. I'm like, it's not about catching on. It's just about having fun at the shows. And if bringing the belt makes me have a little more fun, then why not? So, and then the first time I brought it, everybody, a couple people loved it right away. AG was one of them. The main event was Vern Vicalo versus Randy Shawn in a ladder match. So this was Star Clash 2016, which I believe was Star Clash 3 for LPW. That was the first show it was ever brought to. And that's... So, yeah, that show has a special place. Like, that's one of my favorite LPW shows. And Randy Shawn actually ripped the belt from me and smacked Vern in the head with it. And threw it in the field. I was like, oh man, that thing is destroyed. And sure enough, somebody brought it back to me, and no problems with it whatsoever. I'm like, wow. So, yeah, I just started bringing it to every show after then. It's been, synonymous with me going to LPW. I can't go to an LPW without it. I get yelled at. I get a, where's the belt? And I guess I have to bring it to the Toys for Tots for them as well, because I didn't bring it last Toys for Tots, which was my first time going. And Vern Vicalo was like, where's the belt? And I was like, oh man, I can't escape my fate with that belt. So, next questions are from Chris Sullivan. All right. What made you make LPW into FirePro wrestling game? In the FirePro wrestling game. All right. So before I started going to wrestling shows again, back in 2016, like local indie shows, I wasn't really doing a whole lot. Big introverts. I was staying at home before staying at home was cool. And one thing I did to pass the time was I would make up my own promotions and my own wrestlers. And I would put them in the previous FirePro game. And I would simulate the matches and build the stories off of who wins and who loses, and just kind of create a weekly show. Or eventually do the build up, because I knew, like, the way I would create the wrestlers is eventually, yeah, I put them against this guy and this guy and this guy. He's going to win all the way, and then that way he can challenge for the world title. So I would do that, and I had one promotion, and then I was like, well, sure, my promotion's nice, but then I started making a bunch of other promotions. So, like, I have a Japanese-based promotion. I have basically like a mainstream USA promotion that covers pretty much all of the USA and globally. And then I have more of like a kind of like the South, like the Southern kind of territory, like a WCW, AEW kind of promotion that's like, not as good as your main promotion, but you have it there to, provide a difference. And I think I have some other ones. I think I tried to create like a. Oh, I have a development territory for my main roster. Yeah, I think I'll have to do a video on that all those promotions one week, or maybe this week I'll do that video and just show you guys who like all these promotions I've made. And I'm bringing them to the FirePro Wrestling World game. It's just a matter of time. Don't mind me, my leg is really itchy. Yesterday was a Memorial Day cookout, and I think I got bit by some mosquitoes, like right behind my kneecap. Favorite LPW show or match? This is also from Chris. I think Star Clash 3. Star Clash 3 because, like I said, that's where I first brought the IBC title. And there was a guest there that I know that's a question coming up. So I got to save it for that. And I think for a match, wow, there's been a lot of great LPW matches. I can't really pick just one. But I think two favorites that come to my mind were the Costume Battle Royal for Fall Frenzy 2017, which saw Avery Forstall as the winner. We saw DL Hurst as Repo Dan. AG was the Iron Sheik. Sweat Boy was Shawn Michaels and had Susanna as Sensational Sherry. And Tony S.'s reaction to when Sweat Boy came out like that was priceless. I actually made that ring in FirePro Wrestling World, the Sweat Break Hotel. But yeah, so I made FirePro in the game. I made LPW in FirePro Wrestling World for a couple reasons. So I used to do that with my own rosters, and I still do it with my own roster. I have my main roster on FirePro Wrestling World right now, but it's not as big as it was over on FirePro Wrestling Returns. But so I did that a lot, and during quarantine and lockdown, I know a lot of people wanted LPW, and so did I. And I looked up, who's been in LPW in the past, and I started downloading whoever was already made by other people. So, Flip Gordon was already there. Ivar was already there. Tommaso Ciampa. Dominic Dijakovic. Zelina Vega. All those names, Alicia Edwards. Eddie Edwards. Brian Malonis, they were already there. So I was able to download them off the community, and that started the base. But then I started making some more of the regulars, like Vern Vicalo, Kellen Thomas, Shay Cash, and Frank Champion, because Frank Champion and Shay Cash used to be the heavy hitters. Marcos Pitbull, Izana. So those are just a few people. I made Tony S. as a referee. So, I was able to kind of put that together, and Lucky Lockdown became... Originally it was going to be Quarantine Combat, but I talked to Chris Sullivan, oddly enough, about it, and I asked him, what name do you think sounds better? And I gave him Lucky Lockdown or Quarantine Combat, and he said Lucky Lockdown. So I designed the Lucky Lockdown logo and put the ring together. And so every week now, every Thursday, technically it's like Friday morning at like 1 a.m., that gets uploaded to YouTube. Because Thursdays are kind of like my day. I don't have anything to really worry about on my schedule at night, so I can put more time into it. So as for my favorite LPW match, so yeah, I wanted to give back to the fans, and even after when the quarantine is over, there's still going to be Lucky Lockdown every week. I'm going to do something new every week because I'm having fun with it. Clearly, I haven't really looked at the numbers of the views and everything. Like, I don't really pay attention to all that. I know it gets shared and whatnot, and I know people like it. I've gotten a lot of messages about it, and so I think that's just going to be a regular thing from here on out. Because, sometimes, I know some people can't wait. They're like, oh man, it's like 3 months before the next LPW. It's like, all right, well, we'll have something every week. Just, stay tuned onto YouTube and we'll do something every week. I've been trying to get more people to give me their move sets so I can add more people into the game. Um, so we can really round out the roster, and all kinds of surprises are planned. Um, and this is also another great way to help LPW out, even, like I said, during these times. It reminds people that there is a Lucky Pro Wrestling and there's some dedicated people that still want to keep the show going. Um, so I found a way to do it through simulating it in a video game for YouTube, and a lot of people, like I said, it's a lot more successful than I thought it would be, and that's very humbling. His next question, though. So yeah, favorite LPW show. I said Star Clash 3. And the match, like I said, it was the Costume Battle Royal. And then there was Vern Vicalo versus AG in a street fight for the world title. That's where Vern Vicalo became the first and only so far two-time LPW heavyweight champion. Pretty interesting tidbit about that. Also, during that match, Vern chopped AG really hard across the chest. So AG puts his hands on my knees and just goes, "Ow!" And that was pretty funny. So in that match, there was just years of them kind of feuding on and off, and it was kind of like I shouldn't say the final battle, but if it was to be the final battle between those two at LPW, it couldn't have been done any better. But I know it won't be the last between those two. Does that mean Lucky Lockdown will do something? Maybe. But if there's a reason to have another match, I'm sure it would happen between those two, and it'd probably surpass that match. Another good match, I think. I want to add one more to this. Okay, the night Adira won the LPW Women's Championship. It was a fatal four-way between Davey Ann, Adira, Izana, and Delmi Exo. Star-studded match, I know. And Lish pulled Davey Ann out right when Davey Ann was about to retain her title, and that distraction, Adira capitalized on it and became LPW Women's Champion, which from the beginning of that year, I was starting, the Adira hype train, which we called the Adira Nation. And then at the last show of the year, she won the title. So it was like from the beginning of 2017 to the end, it was, because the second match she had in 2017 for LPW was a one-on-one with Davey Ann, but she came close, but not yet. So, and then she had to beat Alicia at Star Clash, which that was a great match in itself. That was another one of my favorite LPW matches because Alicia is the current LPW Women's Champion, and Adira was the champion before her. So they were two future champions having a match, and it was a great match, Then the Women's Lucky Lottery this year was great, as well as the Men's Lucky Lottery for this year. Any Lucky Lottery, so that I've been there for is one of my favorites. Because Lucky Lottery is actually one of my favorite LPW matches. I also really loved the bull rope match between Vern Vicalo and Makua. So his next question is, how did you find out about LPW? Okay. Back when I was Mr. Stay at Home, before Stay at Home was cool, I did have one weekly activity I did. Every Wednesday it was New Comic Book Day. And we would go to my comic book store, That's Entertainment. And it was just a typical Wednesday, but then we see a flyer for a local wrestling show. And at the time, I had known that for about a year, somebody I went to school with from first grade all the way to senior year in high school was starting to become a wrestler. And I looked for him on the poster. And I was like, well, if he's on the poster, let's go check it out. And sure enough, there he was. Who that was he was then known as Donovan Dijak. He's now Dominic Dijakovic. So that was my initial reason for checking it out. That, and I saw that Alicia Edwards was going to be on there back when she wrestled as Alexis Nevaeh. And I had seen a lot of her stuff on YouTube. So I'd seen some matches on YouTube. I'm like, oh, she's actually around here wrestling? Oh, that's worth checking out. And Dijak? Cool. So that was the reason I went to LPW the first time. And right there and then, I was like, I got to go to every show. Like, whenever they announce when the next one is, let's get our tickets ASAP. And that's pretty much. I've missed a few shows, but um, for the most part, ever since then, I've pretty much I've been as consistent as I possibly can be. And 2019, actually, I had a pretty much perfect record, perfect attendance record, and even went to the Toys for Tots, which was. It wasn't that I didn't want to do them originally. It's just I had bad anxiety about driving that far, but I don't anymore. So 2019 was the first year I could do it. And favorite LPW non wrestling event. Okay, that's a. Well, there's two that stand out. There was Toys for Tots this year with Just Incredible. And then, I think that one's that one. I don't know if I should. I don't know if I can talk about that one, but it was a certain party at the beginning of this year to celebrate something from last year, and um, it was my first time going to that as well, and it was a lot of fun. Um, so yeah, so yeah, Toys for Tots, and oh, also there was the baseball game that Kevin Nash was at. Although I didn't stay for when the Horsemen beat up the mascot over there. I would have loved to have seen it. Um, I heard they had a little fun with the mascot when they weren't supposed to. So, um, but I got to meet Kevin Nash for the second time there. First time I met Kevin Nash. That actually, oddly enough, is an LPW kind of related story, but I'll wait for somebody to ask the question. Um, oh, this one. And this one has two follow ups in it, which is where did the Lucky Lizard come from? So, Lance the Lucky Pro Lizard. For those who do not know who Lance the Lucky Pro Lizard is, he is an inflatable Godzilla costume with an LPW t shirt on. And I'm already laughing talking about it because never in my wildest dreams did I think something like that would work as well as it does. So I got this Godzilla costume because I love Godzilla. The movies, video game. I got a couple toys of them, statues, and um, so I wanted something to wear at Comic Cons. Like I wanted to get into cosplay, which is you dress up in costumes, you go to conventions, and it's just fun to do. And so one of my first cosplays I wanted to do was Godzilla. So I found this inflatable costume. So one month I was like, I had talked about doing it for like a year about buying this costume, and I was like, I'll wait, I'll wait, I'll wait. So finally, what was it? June last year, I finally bit the bullet, bought the costume, got express shipping, and there was a Comic Con right here in Fitchburg later on that week. Or no, I bought it early July. Yeah. And so I paid for express shipping to make sure I could get it the day of the convention. So I put the costume on. I'm like, all right, this is fun, but is there a way LPW could be incorporated into this? So I threw on my LPW shirt over it. And so I took a picture. I sent it to Chris Sullivan. I'm like, Lance the Lucky Pro Lizard. And he's like, I like it. I'm like, okay, well, I know you guys are coming Saturday to Plastic City Comic Con, so maybe he'll show up then. And I know they had a guest planned for that convention, and I don't know the details of what happened, but they couldn't make it. And so I felt bad. So I wanted to help them out, help them get people to come over, and so they could promote LPW or whatever they were doing, which Chris was selling some figures. And so I brought Lance, even though he wasn't inflated that day because the zipper was broken. We won't get into the details of that. So he was deflated that day, but he still got people coming over to see him, and more importantly, go over to the table where Jim and Chris were. And Chris was able to sell a bunch of figures that day, and I think some 8x10s that were autographed got sold. And as the day went on, I was like, well, Lance just can't stand there and just, he's got to do something. So I started thinking of various wrestling taunts. Like I would do like the Hulk Hogan this, and I'd one of these, or the Bushwhackers, and just start doing some of those, a couple Razor Ramon, and people were cracking up, and like I'd throw out a fishing line, try to reel people in, and just kind of dancing around. And Chris and Jim were laughing so hard. Jim had to get a bigger chair because he almost fell out of his other chair because his other chair was too small because he was laughing that hard. I had to go creep up on people and scare them and this and that. And, well, I didn't have to, but they said, hey, why don't you go mess with them for a minute? So usually I did. There was one guy I wouldn't mess with because I had a feeling it would have ended really badly if I did what they wanted me to do. So that was the only time I was like, this one, discretion is the better act of valor. So the next question from Chris was this a Vince Russo booking? No. Vince Russo has nothing to do with LPW whatsoever. And thank God. And as far as I know, I don't know anyone that knows Vince Russo. So, and no, this was a random idea I had. I didn't think it was going to work the way it did. But then again, this title was kind of the same thing. It was like, oh, do you think it's going to work? I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see. And so Lance and the IBC title are two things that weirdly worked, even though they probably shouldn't have, as well as they do. What was the best... Oh, this is from Jim Burgoyne, the other owner of LPW. What was the best response Lance received? Oh, boy. There's a few good ones that stand out. I mean, there was the Creature double feature being promoted at that center from That's Entertainment. And I stood in front of the Strand Theater in Clinton, and even though it was dark out, I was out there dancing, and people were recording me while they were driving, and there were people honking, like, oh my God, there's a lizard in the street, and this and that. That was a good one. And then later on that week, the one-stop shop in Clinton, the comic book store there that usually sells LPW tickets, needed somebody to hand out candy. The owner wasn't feeling good, so he didn't feel safe passing out candy, where Lance, his suit is sterile, so I was able to hand out candy as Lance the Lucky Pro Lizard. So I don't know how many kids were actually in line that night to get candy from Lance the Lucky Pro Lizard. But it was somewhere between 300 or 600. I know that. We ran out of candy. The city of Clinton would not give One Stop Shop any more candy. And we had to start giving out 25-cent comic books, and even those went really, really fast. And I think we had a few people come back in because I don't know if it was because of me or if they heard that the comic books they were giving out comic books. Um, so that was a good one. And then his first LPW show, which was Lucky Lottery of this year. Um, there was this girl who just immediately holds up an L and she's like, "Don't even." And she's like 8 or 9. And so I was just like Lance doesn't talk. That's one of my things. I tried to have him talk once, it just didn't feel right. So he holds up signs to speak. Maybe a dry erase board is in his future. I don't know. But those are the 3 best reactions. But also at Lucky Lottery, only 1 kid cried from Lance, which is a new record because usually I've made like 4 or 5 kids cry. But as time goes on, less kids have cried because of Lance and have actually liked him. So, and also Lance is kind of like Lucky Pro's version of Barney, which is kind of funny because I liked Barney a lot as a kid. Um, and in a weird way, I became the LPW Barney, which I didn't anticipate, but I'll take it. So, all right. Jim asks, favorite LPW superstar? All right, well, my general answer is all of them, everyone. Um, but I think I'll do 2 for the guys, 2 for the girls. All right. So for the guys right now, I'd say Vern Vicalo and let's go with Robo. However, I am a big fan of the Bad Breed. Um, and for the women, I'll say Izana, Sarah Teller, and Adira. And Alicia Edwards. So, um, your favorite special guest that attended an LPW show? That's also from Jim. Um, a lot, pretty much all of them have been great. But my favorite ones have to be Brian Myers, also known as Kurt Hawkins, and the Patriot. Those 2 are my absolute top of the list favorites so far. Um, and then Chris asks the same thing, favorite LPW guest headliner. Why do you think most guests are random? So, as I just previously answered, it was Brian Myers and the Patriot. Um, and Brian Myers was the guest at Star Clash 3. And his match with Retro AG had Retro AG with SoCal Val as his manager. So that's another one of my favorite LPW matches. And I actually got to talk to Brian Myers a little bit at that show. And he was always one of my favorites. And I was bummed he got released by WWE. And I was like, you never got an Elite figure. I kind of made one. He's like, oh, what parts did you use? Because he's a big figure collector. So I told him, he's like, oh, could you tweet it to me? So I did. And then he liked it. And it was really cool to have that moment that he thought was cool. And I have my picture with him still. And as a matter of fact, in this room, I have his 8x10 framed. His is one of the only framed 8x10s right now. And why do I think the guests are random? Well, I think it's because LPW has this catchphrase, which is experience the difference. So a lot of other companies tend to do this and that. And it's kind of like you go to this, it's just the same people, a different town. LPW does things a little differently, and that's why they're guests. They're not going to book the same guest that everybody else is booking because that's like maybe who's in rotation for our area. So like maybe everybody's on a kick for Brian Pillman Jr. Well, LPW, it's nothing against Brian Pillman Jr., but they want to bring somebody else that You're going to say, "Oh, I didn't know he or she was around here. Let's go check it out." And Lodi was a prime example of a weird choice for our area because traditionally Lodi is based out of the Carolinas and kind of that area. He doesn't come up to Massachusetts, so that was one of those rare instances where, yeah, Lodi was up here and people were like, "Wait, what?" So I think it's because of things like that that um, that's why LPW picks them, because everybody wants to go for this guy or girl that's been doing the rounds everywhere else. But, LPW picks a guest because it's somebody that you're not going to traditionally see around here. So I think that's why they pick the guests. And, it gets a lot more people interested. Um, the Patriot was a great choice. Same with Mr. Hughes. Mr. Hughes he was also a great guest. I got to talk to him. He loved the belt. He signed it. Um, so he was really cool to talk to for a couple minutes. So yeah, really anyone they've brought, yeah, I always like seeing who they bring in, and it's always a fun surprise. It's like a gumball machine. Like what you're gonna get, kind of more or less at the other companies. But like I said, LPW is a gumball machine. You put the quarter in, you turn the dial, and you open it up, and oh, I wasn't expecting this, but this is awesome. You never get a dud. Um, Next question is from Jim. Any plans for more titles or cosplays at future LPW shows? All right. Well, I have been in heavy negotiations with Lance's legal team, and he wants to be a regular at every LPW. He's going to try to be there before the bell rings, which I guess he doesn't want me there. So I'm probably going to have to like go into hiding or something when he comes out, and then he's gonna get a little nervous once he starts hearing certain music. Like I think a certain song, he'll say he has to go to the bathroom, but from what I heard, he goes outside. Um, and then he's not usually. He might try to come out during intermission, um, but it depends on how many children he scares. I guess he's got that kind of clause in his contract. He's a hard negotiator, that guy. As for more titles, I don't know if I could really do any more titles. This one kind of is synonymous, but if I have an idea for a title, I think something will show up. But as for a different cosplay, I suppose it would have to be a seasonal thing. But for the most part, I think Lance kind of wants to be the sole cosplay of LPW in terms of characters that I either know or play. Um, Next question is from Jim. Dream match you would love to see at LPW? Wow, that's a tough one. Um, I think. Hmm. Hmm. Uh, Gotta think about this one. I think. Hmm. It's a weird choice, but with what I may or may not know, well, no, that's not a good way to word it. Um, it's a weird choice, but for me, it makes the most sense in the world. To other people, would look at me like I have three heads, and you know what? That's the exact response I want. Because I like to keep people guessing. I like to surprise people. So I think this is very out of left field, but I know why this match would be a good match. and that's all I need to know is that it's good enough for me, which is Vern Vicalo versus Marcos Pitbull. There's a hidden meaning to that match. I see it, and I know, like I said, as fans of the guys, I know them well enough as to why that would be a good match. Um, so that is my secret dream match. Because another good match would be, even though they haven't been there in a while, and I know one of them can't be there due to a contract, but it would have been Donovan Dijak versus Josh Briggs. I've seen them have a match at Limitless. I watched it on YouTube, and then there was a triple threat which Christian Casanova was in at another show in Chaotic. But I just want those two one-on-one and done by LPW, because that arena would devour that match and leave nothing left. Like, the fans would leave everything in the ring for both guys, and I think it would be a great clash of titans, if you will. So that would be a cool match to see as well. This one is from Mike Spadorcha, aka Spud, one of the unsung heroes of LPW. He doesn't get enough of a shout out. So every now and then say, "Hey Spud, what's up?" If you could manage an LPW star, who would it be? Wow. That's the hot seat question right there. To be honest, all of them. If I could manage all of them at one point or another, that would be cool. But a couple people stand out. Like, Sarah Teller does a lot of the Harley Quinn kind of thing, and I've been known to cosplay the Joker. So that way, that would be someone I wouldn't mind being a manager for, and like helping them come out of their shell and break away from me, because like the Joker was always bad for Harley Quinn in the end. So, and yeah, so it would help, more people get behind her, be like, oh man, why is she taking that crap from him, blah, blah, blah. Then the blow off is she turns on me, and then I go off never to be seen again or whatever, or into hiding, and then, I come back with somebody bigger and meaner to mess with her, and so that's who I'd manage for the girls. Um, for the guys, I have a few choices. Shady Shay Cash is, well, the heavy hitter Shay Cash. He's definitely one I would love to be the manager of. Not that he needs a manager, but it would just be fun to be a manager for him. Um, because, he's kind of, I call him Shayzilla, because we both like Godzilla, so um, to be able to like bill him as this giant monster like Godzilla and just hype him up, like, let him fight. That would just be so much fun to be that kind of character, to help him, just show people that he's a monster to not be, he's a force to be reckoned with. Um, so those two for sure. And hmm, Vern, he'd be fun to be a manager for, but it would be more of a. I think he would only. It could only be like a one-time thing, but that's all I would need. I wouldn't mind being the Bad Breeds manager either, because the Four Horsemen, they had J.J. Dillon, James J. Dillon. So, not saying I could be the James J. Dillon of Bad Breed, but like a manager that is a Bad Breed kind of guy like them. And they don't really need the manager, but it's not a bad idea to have one for guys, for a group like that. And especially they could even get more over by kind of sending me off, turning on me, showing how bad they really are. It's like, oh, you thought you could control us? Nope. And then send me off in a body bag. Um, So it could be one of those things too. So those are the, I think, people I'd like to manage. Um, and this is from Chris Sullivan, which is what non-LPW shows have you been to? Chaotic, 01 USA Northeast, and that one show at Fenway. Really, other than that, I try to just keep things LPW based. Even though 01's closer to me, um, LPW was what got me back into indie shows because I was gone from indie shows for like 10 years because I didn't really know how to follow the other promotions back in the day. So it wasn't until 2016 that I learned that, other shows were out, these shows were out there running pretty much every month, this and that. And they had Facebook so you could follow where they were going next because they would update on there. So, but for the longest time, I didn't know there were shows really. And where I was living, there wasn't anything near me. Um, this one's for Jim, which is what made you try stand-up comedy? All right, he knows the answer to this one, and this is why he wants me to answer it, and I will happily answer it. So, Star Clash 4, which was in June of 2017. I went up to Jim to ask if I could lend a hand, whether it's on their street team or whatever they need help with. I've just wanted to be, I've been coming to the shows for about a year, having time of my life, want to kind of learn how this goes. And so that's the night there. And then where I gave Jim my info, and the rest was history with that. But during that show, I had people laughing throughout the night, which is not unheard of at an LPW show. This lady comes up to me, she puts her arm around me, and she goes, "You need to do stand up." And I was like, that is one of my dreams, but not yet. And then a year later, she came up to me, "Have you done any open mic nights yet?" And I was like, "No, not yet. I'm working on something else," which was LPW. And then at the beginning of this year, 2020, something happened that I kind of saw it coming, and it wasn't good, but I didn't like it. So I was like, "Oh, well, I kept talking about being a stand-up, and I was going to say, oh, I was going to wait for school. But then I realized going to school, like comedy school, is kind of a joke in itself. And the best way to go out there is to just go and do it. The same way I approached helping out LPW. So a lot of the tools I learned from there gave me the confidence I needed to get into cosplay, then to stand up, which is what I'm going to be getting back to when this COVID mess is over. That and LPW, of course. LPW, believe it or not, is before my stand up. Um, so the night before Lucky Lottery was my first open mic night. And Lucky Lottery was a turnaway crowd. And then my first open mic night the night before, that was like my WrestleMania weekend. And it happened this year. So, like, as bad as things have gone this year and the things I've lost, but there are things I've gained and stuff that can never be taken away. And in that weekend, two things happened. Stand up started for me, and LPW had a turnaway crowd, which that meant like getting those two things kind of starting at the same night, because that fan suggested it. Well, I finally took her suggestion the night before LPW's next turnaway crowd. It was kind of like, oh, this was meant to be. So, but yeah, it was something happened to me with something. I said, well, the only, make a change, but don't change for them, change for you. What did you want to do? Stand up? Okay, well, let's find an open mic night. Let's see if they'll let you on. Whether it's 5 minutes or 15, go there and take it. And that's what I did. And I was able to get 3 open mic nights under my belt before the virus. And that's what I'm going to go back to. And, they all want me to come back. They liked me. So I'm looking forward to coming back to those places and finding new places to perform. And but more importantly, I'm looking more forward to LPW getting back to the way it was and having fun there. Uh, Mike Spadorcha, Spud, once again. What comedians do you look up to? Wow, I mean, there's been so many. Like Robin Williams, a lot of people say, and I do admire his work. More of his quotes are what I try to go by. Um, Eddie Murphy, I like some of his stand up. Stephen Colbert, I love his political satire comedy. I like Jon Stewart, Anthony Jeselnik, Hannibal Buress, Bill Burr, um, Dennis Leary, all the stand up greats. George Carlin, Bobcat Goldthwait, Sam Kinison. I mean, I could go on for days. Comedians I love, just like wrestlers I love. Uh, I really like, I'd say the most right now is Anthony Jeselnik, just because he doesn't apologize for any of his jokes. He knows they're offensive, and he's not going to back down, and he shouldn't, you know, because comedy is derived from tragedy. One person's pain is another person's pleasure, believe it or not. And so, yeah, you got a joke and you can't take back your jokes. Like, if this isn't funny to joke about, then this thing isn't funny. Then this thing isn't funny. And eventually you would get to the point where nothing could be joked about and nobody would have a sense of humor. So you got to joke about some of the things that, maybe it's inappropriate, maybe it's bad timing, but, um, because if you can't joke about it, because it'll offend this, then you can't make jokes about this because it'll offend this, and the list will go on and on. People will not want to be made fun of for getting pies in their face, and we can't make that joke anymore. So, you know what I mean? Like, so that's why make all the jokes you can. Um, let's see. I got two questions left from Tony A. Now this question, I already know the answer, and he knows the answer, but he wants me to say it out loud. Uh, which LPW executive has the best hair? Obviously, it's you, Tony. Although Jim, he's a very close second, and nice thick hair. That's gonna last him a long time. He doesn't have to worry about going bald, I don't think. But Tony, you definitely do, and you let people know. And I think if anyone else said you didn't, then be fighting words. So no, you have the nicest hair, Tony. Don't worry. I will always agree with you there. You're the best. You got the best hair for LPW executives. And then he asks, would I be interested in watching an indie company run an empty venue show online? Yes, yes, I would. I would love to see anything. Whether it be LPW who does that, whether it be Chaotic, whether it be 01 USA Northeast, I would watch whoever if you got an empty online show. If you want to put it on your Facebook or whatever, yeah, make it easy enough to get to. I'll watch it. I'd love to check it out. Um, However, LPW, I would not want to watch online. I would rather be there in person. So even if that means I just have to clean up the floors afterwards or whatever, I'd be happy to just be there. Um, or, if I just have to watch where the cameras aren't filming or whatever, and out of this and that, or if I have to stand outside to watch it through the window with binoculars, as long as I'm there, that's the only place where I said, no, I can't watch it online. I have to be there. And that's the only promotion I probably will say it about. It's nothing against the others, but like I said, I didn't know about shows for a long time. And so LPW was the first show that I followed regularly, and I plan on following it to infinity and beyond. Same with 01. You know, they started, they're not too far from where I live. AG's a really good friend of LPW, and, you know, there's every now and then some LPW champions make some appearances over there. So, um, but I wouldn't mind seeing one of those online. Like I could, I if that's how the only way they can, you know. But for LPW, I have to be there. Like it would feel naked to me. Like I'd be like, it's not the same for me. LPW, you just have to live it. You have to be there to experience it. It's yeah. Most of these were very LPW heavy questions, but is that to be is that to be expected? I think so. I think everybody knew that. I know I'm a big LPW guy, and yeah, this was fun. Some of these questions were a lot harder than I thought they would be, but I hope that gives you guys a better understanding of, you know, what got me into this, what got me into that, and who I like and whatnot. And if there's more questions on July 6th, I might be on another show then. I might be out of New England at that point visiting family. I don't know. Um, so I really can't say right now. But I'll do a Q&A once I get more than 15 questions at a time. So, all right. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay tuned for Lucky Lockdown later this week. Maybe I'll introduce my custom roster before then or after. I don't know. All right. Later.